What's going on in schools? Many parents are kind of frustrated at what teachers are teaching their children or how subject matter is being taught, especially math. What I want to talk to you about today is not to blame the teacher, blame the bureaucrats. That's what I want to discuss in this episode of The Math Rebel. Parents have become frustrated in how math is being taught, among other things, in the schools. I had some strange experiences. Well, first off, I was fortunate enough in 5th and 6th grade to have two very strong math teachers. They were men. 5th grade, I had a man by the name of Ray Tidd, who's probably the best 5th grade math teacher anybody could ever want. And what they did is they siphoned off the kids or divided them up by math ability, and one period the top kids in 5th grade in my elementary school went to his class, and I was one of them. And he taught in such a way that was low stress but was intriguing and made students want to learn. It was very enjoyable. 6th grade, I had a man by the name of Steve Spatz. I got moved into his class. He was actually a 6th grade teacher that was a math major. And so they really reinforced strong math skills in us, and a lot of my classmates that worked with them or were students continued on to do very well. And in my career as a sub, and this happened about over a decade ago, I was doing either a 5th grade or 6th grade class, and I was like in a zone teaching. I was having a real good time. I felt the students were learning because I was having a lot, I want to say, flashbacks of how I was taught this stuff. And I thought the day was going great. What happened was, at lunchtime, another teacher came in and asked me, well, how's your day going? It's very, common for teachers to do this. And I told her, I said, this is going great. I know the subject matter, and I mentioned, I said, I remember how I was taught this stuff. And she looked at me and she goes, and we have to forget that, don't we? And I thought that was kind of a curious thing to say. And I thought about it. I said, that didn't make any sense. Why should we need to forget about how we were taught something or how something was taught to us if it worked, and it will continue to work with students of upcoming generations? But it's how the bureaucrats are changing how teachers teach. One of the things that I do when I had my tutoring business, I would work with kids and do some drills with addition and multiplication. And I was even worked with the playing cards, which I've discussed earlier and I will discuss later. And I was talking to an elementary school teacher about this. And he said he was doing this. Okay, but he said he could not do it if he felt that an administrator would see him. Even though he told me that by working with the index card or the playing cards, the students were getting more engaged and were starting to learn and were starting to enjoy learning math. But the bureaucrats, or what would happen is if a teacher or administrator come in and saw them, they'd say, that's not in the standards, that's not how things are supposed to be taught. We teach it this way. You see, I came into teaching a little late, and I go by what works. And then as a substitute teacher, I'm more or less left to my own devices. I will teach it, and if a administrator comes in and sees me teaching, they're just happy that I can teach. But another curious thing happened when I decided to become a contracted teacher, a full-time teacher. I majored in finance instead of math, so I had to take some math tests to prove that I was subject matter qualified, that I knew the subject enough to teach it. And so I took the test, passed the test, and I was able to become a long-term teacher, a long-term sub, which is longer than 30 days, and become a work on credential, become a math teacher. And my mother told me that there was an opening in my old school where the principal was my old math teacher. So I said, okay, I can do this. And so I can work with the principal, and I could tell him I'm trying this and various different things. I was interviewed to be a full-time teacher. And one of the questions that was very strange to me, they asked, suppose you came upon this method that worked, and the kids are learning, and the principal said, don't do that. What would you do? And I looked at them and I said, well, that wouldn't happen. I knew the principal. He was my math teacher. We can work things out. And if I told him something worked, he would agree with me. And I kept on that, so I got hired. But you have to take into account what's going on. Many teachers that are young, they have to first go through 4 years, get a bachelor's degree. If it takes 4 years, it may take longer. Then an additional year of getting a teaching credential, and possibly 6 weeks of what is called student teaching if they don't get an internship, where it's basically unpaid learning, where they're learning how to teach under a mentor teacher. So they go into a different class, or they go into a class, and the teacher will set up the lesson plans and stuff, and there's a six week, or depending on the state, process. I've actually subbed in classes where there's a student teacher because I have the credential, they don't, and I just have to sit there while they run the classroom. So if you take a teacher that's just got a credential, they're in their early 20s or mid-20s, they get their first teaching job. They have a lot of student debt, and they probably have a skill that may not be transferable to get another job at the same amount of pay. So they're kind of stuck, and they have to do what the principal or the other administrators tell them how to teach. They can't rebel like I did and say, no, I want to teach it this way because it works. I know it works. I've had success at it. And what you're doing there doesn't make any sense. So keep that in mind if you're a parent having to go to a teacher conference with a teacher and these strange ways of having to teach that might not make sense to you. The teachers are forced to teach this way because the bureaucrats force them to. Thanks for watching. Until next time.
"82 rules, baby."